couple of people, or actually a lot of people. I've been doing this job for like 26 years, and also often we get people come in and whatever, you know, we call it the flavor of the day, whether it's gang violence or weapons or those type of things. We'll get community activists or parents or leaders and, hey, you got to do something. And there's not a magic book where we open it up and go, okay, we'll do page 4 and we'll have this solved by 5 o'clock. Bonnie and her group came. Colleen, you know, was on the other side of the hill and said, yeah, we do have a problem. And actually, we did know we had a problem. In the mountain community especially, there's just not the places or the social outlets for youth. They don't have the big malls and the big movie theaters and the miniature golf and the things for them to go and socialize. And all too often they end up at somebody's house and alcohol's accessible. Whether it's there or they steal it at the store or a friend buys it, there's a host of ways, but one way or another they're going to get it. And so we got pretty good at, you know, people coming in and going, hey, there's a problem, what should we do? And now we go, well, what do you think? And Bonnie said, I got an idea, here you go. And so we're like, well, that sounds good. And actually we were fortunate enough to get Supervisor Derry's office online. And
social hosting ordinance is going to be a step in the right direction for our communities. We know we've got issues up here in the mountain. We have issues all throughout the county with underage drinking. And we think that this will be a tool to help us work through these issues with law enforcement, with social service providers, to really cut down on underage drinking, particularly on the binge drinking and other things that have affected families' lives. And this is a great opportunity to work together, and I'm always looking for those opportunities to coordinate with you folks, because I want to do a good job for you, and I can only do that if I'm working with you and we're working together.
This social host ordinance gives communities an additional tool to address those environmental factors and hopefully make changes. The mother and the students, and Dan Stiles too, very eloquently stated what the problems are. You don't need for me to repeat. Parties, friends, adult purchases, and it's our consensus that wherever there are underage youth that are having a party or are drinking, have access to, there is usually someone 21 and over who is key to that. He's making or she is making the alcohol available or the place available. As this young lady stated, young people will tell you time and time again that alcohol is very available, easily accessible at these house parties and other social gatherings. They don't even have to come up with the money to pay for it, because somebody is already providing. And not only that, they're providing the opportunity, they're providing a place that is convenient for them to drink. Public health has many concerns regarding alcohol problems, because alcohol problems are acute and they're chronic. They're chronic for young people who eventually develop a dependency and addiction and all the problems and consequences that come with that. But they're also acute in that during the episode where they are drinking, and in many cases heavy drinking, binge drinking, things happen. Decisions are not well thought out. They get into a vehicle and drive. There is always another victim who had nothing to do with that young person drinking who got in the vehicle. There are sexual assaults. A lot of times some of these violent crimes occur at the houses where these house parties are occurring. But when they're under the influence and they've been doing some heavy drinking, things do happen. And those things affect the society at large, affect families, affect even just with one violent act. Many times it's a factor that alcohol is involved with, the perpetrator was drinking or the victim was drinking, but alcohol is a factor in all of this.
First of all, there's been some question from time to time about why do you call it a social host ordinance? And really it has to do with social availability versus retail availability. When you talk about underage youth buying alcohol from a retail outlet like a bar or a club or a market or convenience store, that's retail availability. Social availability refers to availability in these situations you see here. And you may, by looking at the bullet points on the left side of the slide, see some of the situations that occur up here in the mountain regions, like we hear you have tourist season up here, and you have some parties that relate to ski season where alcohol is available. That would be one of those types of situations. Or underage youth can access alcohol. Graduation parties, smaller house parties, public events such as picnics or in the forest. Alcohol that's obtained through older friends, siblings, parents, or strangers. So that's essentially what we're talking about, alcohol availability in social situations. Now, why do we care about alcohol, first of all? There's a lot of other drugs out there. People ask that question too. And so what I wanted to present was a little bit of information to put this in context. Alcohol is the most abused drug. And you can see, these are data from the school districts up here in the mountain region. And you can see that this is current alcohol use past 30 days, Healthy Kids survey that's given to all the students in high school and middle school in California. And you can see the percentage of students who use alcohol versus the other most popular drugs, marijuana and tobacco, which are kind of running neck and neck. We are interested in these drugs, but alcohol is really the most abused drug, as you can see, so that's why we're interested in that. Impact of binge and underage drinking. Most people are aware that driving under the influence and automobile crashes are a big problem with binge and underage drinking. But sometimes people don't think about these other things that are also associated, these other short-term impacts of underage drinking. And you can see by looking at these, there are impacts on the individual who's drinking, as well as impacts on the community where the drinking takes place. Neighborhood vandalism and violent crimes. And sometimes parents or adults thinking that they can control these and prevent these will host a party in a house, take the keys away, and say, well, we're not going to have any drinking and driving, we'll supply the alcohol and everybody will be safe. And that's where the mistaken belief comes in, because these things don't always work out. And even if you were able to control all these things and make sure none of these short-term impacts took place, we have the long-term drinking problem. The data showing us that the earlier a youth is exposed to alcohol, the greater problems they have later in life with drinking problems. And I see Rusty nodding his head here from our treatment programs that have to deal with people throughout their lives, and the cost to individuals and to their productivity throughout their life is really harmed. And you can see here that if you start drinking before the age 15, you are 4 times as likely to have a drinking problem later in life. And this is national data. And other data from the county showed that the typical age of first exposure to alcohol here in San Diego County is about 12 years old. That's when kids have their first drink.